What if the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think? Welcome to Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley, the podcast where science meets spirituality and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Chris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do the same. Each week, we explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, awaken to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. To the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I'm really excited for my guest today. She is an expert on forgiveness. And if you've read my book, you've heard my show, you know that forgiveness is something I talk about a lot as well, or seen me speak ever. I talk a lot about forgiveness. So I'm really excited to kind of swap ideas and see her take on it and learn something new alongside all of you. First, a couple quick announcements. As always, head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find ways to connect with my lovely guest. You'll find ways to connect with me on social media, ways to sponsor the podcast. You'll find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by 3 people from the film The Secret. That's Michael Beckwith, Marcy Shimoff, Bob Doyle. It was endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and Anita Marjani, who wrote Dying to Be Me. So go check it out. And yeah, you'll find links to my other 2 television shows, all about metaphysics. One's a docuseries, one's an interview show. So go explore, check it out. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. We are doing massive things in personal development. We have an event pretty much once a month, either in person or virtual now. I was just on stage with Dean Graziosi and Les Brown and Mark Victor Hansen and Jim Quick and Joseph McClendon and Sharon Lecter. Like, we have incredible headliners. Come be a part of what we're doing. It's so much fun. We're changing the world and having fun while we do it. All right, so with me today, I have Dara McKinley. So in 2012, with 2 decades of psychology and spirituality behind her, is it Dara or Dara? I didn't even ask you.
Dara.
Okay, I have Dara. Okay, Dara faced a difficult situation that none of her previous knowledge could improve. Feeling called to try forgiveness, she searched online for a forgiveness how-to and quickly discovered there was so much about why one should forgive, but nothing about how. Needing directions to follow, she decided to make her own forgiveness step by step, which upon completion left her feeling peaceful for the first time in 3 years. Impressed by forgiveness's effectiveness, she quickly became a devotee. Over the coming years, her experience with forgiveness would deepen, and so would her awareness of popular forgiveness understanding. Specifically, she saw that most people had something they wanted to forgive, but they didn't know how. She also saw that mainstream forgiveness definitions were actually obscuring the forgiveness path. Seeing the need for a logical and straightforward forgiveness paradigm, Dara created How to Forgive. Today, Dara guides participants beyond mainstream forgiveness understandings and into a practical spiritual process that heals and restores peace. So welcome, Dara. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And Dara is joining us all the way from Rome today. So it's so cool what technology can do. We can just have conversations across the globe. So I always start my episodes off the same way, and that is by asking my guests, what is their origin story? So what is it that put you on this path of forgiveness?
Well, I would say that I was born a very spiritual little girl, and When I say that, I was born with a felt sense of unconditional love. And I'm not by no means an unconditional loving person, but I just always had this sense of something greater than me. And I had no clue what it meant or what to do with it or how to use it. And I definitely didn't grow up in a culture or society that asked me about it, cultivated it. So I just kind of was having this experience and was on my own with it. But slowly, as I developed and aged, I found a path towards psychology and spirituality, and then ended up finding a graduate degree that merged those two together in Boulder, Colorado. And I'd always heard about forgiveness as someone, I was a junkie for healing modalities. And of course, I heard about forgiveness, but whenever I tried to put it into practice, because I'm a very practical person as well, I always came up empty. So I kind of chalked it up like, oh, it's some nice spiritual ideal, but it really doesn't have legs that walk. And in 2012, I converged with it in a different way.
Do you want to share that story about 2012?
Sure, yeah. So in the early 2000s, I got into a business relationship with a couple of people that I would eventually see that I was incompatible with. But the business took off and we just kind of endured each other for as long as we could. And then probably like 5-6 years in, everything fell apart and I was pushed out of the business. And I was half relieved and half heartbroken because the business did bring me a lot of joy. So at the time, I had 2 decades of psychology and spirituality behind me. So I said, okay, Dara, this is a huge hit, but you will recreate your life. You'll focus on gratitude. You'll lean into your significant relationships. You'll process your emotions. You'll pull out every skill that you've learned over the last 2 decades and apply it, and you'll get through. And 3 years later, and this would happen when I was folding the laundry and doing the dishes, I noticed a negative narrative looping in my head still. And as this is happening, I'm also getting assaulted by the initial symptoms of perimenopause. And so I'm having insomnia, anxiety, fatigue, and I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And perimenopause right now, you can Google and find way more information than you ever wanted to know about it. But just 12, 13 years ago, it was a desert. So you could not Google perimenopause and get any information. So the doctors were like, we don't know what's wrong with you. So I really started like freaking out essentially. And because I have this really strong spiritual connection, and I would never describe myself as psychic, but I'm very, very intuitive. And so I can have these like come to Jesus moments that I've probably prior to this have had 3 or 4 times in my life. And so I pulled that card. I said, wow, I'm really, really concerned. I'm scared for my children. I'm scared for my health. Like, I need a sign. I absolutely need a message about how I can step forward out of this situation. And the message I got back was forgive. And very important moment right here is that, like, a lot of people who get the nudge to forgive or get the suggestion to forgive, I did not like that message. I resented it. I rolled my eyes. I thought, oh, how could pardoning what happened be the answer to my problems? And I tried to blow it off. And about 60 minutes after I got the message, it was so clear and so strong. I thought, okay, Dara, you like to try new things. You're very open. Get online. This is 2012 now, October 2012. Get online, Google how to forgive, and find whoever wrote the How to Forgive 5-step PDF and follow it and see what happens. You have nothing to lose. And so I did that, and 99.9% of what came up at the time was why a person should forgive and nothing about how. And well, there was some woman on some forum somewhere that I found, like me, calling out to the forum and saying, but how do you do it? And everyone was answering her back, you just do it. So I closed my computer and I was like, well, I can't just do it. Like, I really do need a step-by-step. And I thought, I'm on my own here. And so I said, well, Dara, you've been studying psychology and spirituality for 2 decades. If anyone can figure this out, you can. Think about this. How would someone go about doing this? And my first question to myself, which stepped me onto the forgiveness path, was, okay, I've been looping in a negative narrative for 3 years. What's the opposite of doing that? And well, I'd like to ask you that question before I answer it, because it's always interesting to me, like what someone thinks the opposite of looping in a negative narrative is. And I know that's like a huge range.
For me, it's probably like, how did you grow from this? What did you learn from this?
Yeah, okay, lovely. Um, my answer to that question was, oh, I would bless this entire situation with the highest love.
Mm.
And with that, I took my first step. And then I pretty much entered, what someone could say like a, vortex for the next 3 days where I received this, immense transmission. And I don't say that in any airy fairy way. I really kind of locked myself in my closet and went really, really deep. It was very cathartic. And I came up with this practice and I did it for 21 days. And 21 days later, I felt completely at peace about what had happened. And as a junkie for healing modalities, I was wow. I thought, whoa, this works. This forgiveness is for real. And then my second thought was, and that wasn't pardoning. Like, why does everybody say forgiveness is pardoning? But that was that. I didn't think anything more of it at the time. I thought, okay, I just got a personal win. I got through that and I went forward with my life. But then over the next 2 years, I would begin to see that everyone thinks forgiveness is pardoning. And so many people are stuck with that definition. And I want to throw in a caveat right now that I know that that definition does work for a lot of people. I know people who've survived atrocities and wars who swear that pardoning freed them. And I believe these people. But there's also this other huge demographic where pardoning doesn't land at all. And so I'm speaking to that group, and I want to tell you that you're not a forgiveness failure and you're not out of the forgiveness game if that definition feels like an obstacle.
So the practice you did for 21 days, and thank you for sharing. I love that story. The practice you did for 21 days, was it, just to be clear, it was going into your closet and just meditating and sending the situation love? Is that it?
No, so I define forgiveness as the ability to apply unconditional love.
Okay.
And so from my perspective, the four mainstream definitions of forgiveness are pardoning, having compassion, ceasing anger, and letting go of the past.
Okay.
And so from my perspective, those definitions are actually putting the cart before the horse. So if you get under forgiveness's hood, which is what I did that night, I popped the hood and looked at the engine. I said, what is the force that enables those four things to happen? And I was like, oh, the force is divine love, God's love, unconditional love, universal love, the love of Allah, the love of Jesus, whatever you want to call it, however you identify with it. It's the ability to apply that love. And so that's the part one of the definition. Forgiveness is the ability to apply unconditional love. And the second part of that definition is one's ability to identify what needs it. So that and this latter part of the definition, the second part is actually the trickier piece. Applying unconditional love, once you learn how to do it, it's fairly easy, it feels good, it's great. Figuring out what needs it, that is something that requires more inquiry, more awareness, more consciousness, and definitely like a deeper dive into yourself and your shadow and your somatic experience.
So how does someone apply unconditional love to a situation?
Well, I teach people how to use the right hemisphere of their brain. So we have these two hemispheres. The left hemisphere is responsible for navigating the external world. And that's the hemisphere that we are taught from the gate to develop. And we think that that's, the path to a successful life is knowing how to navigate the external world in an effective way. So that's what all academics, really push into us, most academics. The right hemisphere is responsible for navigating the internal world. And it's finally having its day, and it's a very exciting time where the inner experience is now being understood as extremely valuable and almost maybe even 1% more valuable than knowing how to navigate the external world. So that the right hemisphere is responsible for our spiritual connection, for our emotional intelligence, for our somatic experience, and and our imagination. And so people often think that imagination is, about visualizing ideas and, new thoughts and, coming up with creative, like, using it for creativity. But it's actually also a doorway to what's happening to you inside. So once you understand how to use it to read, your inner files, I often refer to it as it's like a platform, it's like a Photoshop. Like once you use it to pull up the files, then you can use it. So in terms of unconditional love, you would use it to pull up your spiritual files. And again, it can be however you identify spiritually, because I'm very much a believer that we all have a unique spiritual blueprint. And there are different things that bring us closer to God, and it's different for every person. So once you bring those up, then you can learn then you have it, then you can direct it in what direction you need to direct it into. And so in terms of forgiveness, you direct it towards something in the past that you want resolved.
So it's kind of tapping into your own spirituality, your own maybe higher self, your own unconditional love that lives in you, and then just directing that towards something. Am I understanding that correctly?
So the first thing I teach people is how to have their own experience of unconditional love. So there are thousands and thousands of words written about divine love, God's love, unconditional love. And so I'm trying to get people away from the words and into the somatic experience. So the first thing I do is have them feel unconditional love in their own body. Then we go through a meditation, a visualization, a blessing, again, however you like to refer to it, where we then direct that love towards a situation, a person, whatever it is that you'd like to forgive. And so that's basically step one. But it begins with feeling it yourself in your body. And with that said, I, started this off talking about how I was born very spiritual, and I was born with a felt sense of unconditional love. So that night when I answered that question, and I was like, I would bless it with the highest love. For me, all I had to do was reach for it, because it's always been right there my entire life. And I understand that that's not everybody's experience. But unconditional love is flowing through us and for us in some way, whether it be through family, through nature. Nature is a huge place, through going to holy places, through creativity, through passions. There's so many ways that it's actually pouring into this earth realm. So for people who feel like, I don't feel unconditional love, and I can't just pull it up the way you can, it's like, then just start paying attention to how it's coming through in your life. I mean, you talked about how you're a new mom, and so I can imagine that experience,
lots of love.
Right? Did it feel spiritual?
It's just that heart expanding, absolute unconditional love, absolutely.
Right. So there's I always say that babies, I love, I think it's actually one of the strongest examples of unconditional love on planet Earth. And I love how babies have just arrived here, and
it's wild.
They and they beam it, they truly beam it, and they elicit it from us at the same time. They're absolute beacons of it. So they're one of my favorite examples also. But most people can say that when they're by the ocean, or when they're deep in a forest, or really just completely saturated in nature, that's an undeniable place as well for feeling it.
Really cool. I really love this. So do you have people do this for 21 days like you did? Or how long do people feel a shift? What does that look like?
Right. So from that left brain perspective, we're building a new neural pathway, right? Because the right hemisphere isn't developed in mainstream society. So for a lot of people, it's atrophied. And so we're really building that muscle. So I say it's a 21-day script. However, I say it's a 21-day script for someone who wants to forgive something that's completely behind them. There's different time frames that people can forgive. And so if someone's forgiving something that's in their current life, like co-parenting with a difficult ex, or dealing with a chronic illness, or having a difficult boss, or whatever it may be, right? If someone's waking up in the morning to this huge problem, then forgiveness becomes more of a practice. And it's a practice that keeps you connected to the highest path and keeps you from getting emotionally congested. Because when we're experiencing stress like that day after day, it builds, and then all sorts of problems can come from that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
If someone's forgiving something that's completely behind them, that's definitely more straightforward. The time frames that are completely behind a person can be the episodic time frame, and that's the time frame I had when I came to forgiveness. Like, something happened. It was this event. It was really intense. I even, once I forgave, I was actually able to tap into, I like to just call it nervous system overwhelm, but a very slight trauma, a very slight trembling in my body, because the event had been so strong. And that's kind of the shadow side, not the shadow side, but that's the thing to watch for with episodic timeframes, is that they can come on really strong and they can overwhelm the nervous system. And then this other time frame in the past is epic. And epic is when something has gone on for a long, long period of time. And people with epic time frames, and childhood is the most obvious example of that, something, or long marriages or whatever. Epic timeframes, these people know they have something they would love to forgive. And when they hear about forgiveness, they're really excited, like, oh yes, there's something I would love to forgive. And then when they reflect on how long their saga went on for, they immediately get overwhelmed and think oh, too much has happened. I don't even know where to begin to forgive that, so they just think it's too daunting. And so for anyone with this time frame, do not feel overwhelmed by it. You really are anatomically designed to heal and to forgive. And, your right hemisphere of your brain can address that 100%. So I just explained the 3 time frames of forgiveness.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Have you found people, because holding on to all of those repressed and suppressed emotions and anger and blame, that can literally make you sick. Have you found anyone, having amazing healings after doing this practice or anything like that?
Mostly from the emotional perspective. No one has come yet that has had anything in an acute, severe place, because typically when someone's in that arena, they're just surviving, it's kind of past the point where they can really address it. However, I have definitely had, I've basically just been forgiving and forgiving and forgiving. I'm kind of just obsessed with the whole practice, and and it's not, I would never call it easy, but it's always so worth it to me. So I've definitely had random mystery pains in my body that I have been able to include into the practice, where the practice has proven 100% effective. So I can just speak for that for myself. And I also, knowing myself, I'm a very psychosomatic person, meaning that my unprocessed emotions filter into physical symptoms kind of at light speed. So,
lucky you.
Yeah, sort of.
So, okay, so you said there was kind of the 2-part thing, right? The first was figuring out how does someone apply unconditional love. The second was figuring out what needs it. So let's talk about the figuring out what needs it. Because it seems like a lot of times people would come to you and be like, this is the thing I need to forgive. So is there something deeper underneath that? Or just talk to me about that.
Right. So one of the biggest criticisms about forgiveness in mainstream, that you can kind of find online, is many people think that it's spiritual bypassing, that it actually bypasses the pain and reality of what happened, and it's just a platitude.
That's weird.
And, say it again.
I said that's weird.
How so?
because to me, it's like so obviously a healing practice. To think that spiritual bypassing is just like a strange, it just sounds like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, I think when people say just let it go, or just have compassion, when you put the word just in front of those definitions, I know that I felt defensive at it because I'm not someone who can just let it go. Like, I have my hand raised.
I can understand like if someone said it like that, but like
Yeah.
forgiveness as a whole, I'm like, oh, that's weird that people think that's spiritual bypassing.
Oh yeah, no, there's books written called like "Don't Forgive." Like, this is a very strong perspective that a lot of people have. I remember the first time I haven't done this in like a decade, but like a decade ago, I went on Twitter just to see what people were saying about forgiveness, and I checked out the hashtag forgiveness, and 95% of it was that forgiveness was nonsense. And it was a very popular hashtag. So forgiveness has, quite a bit of criticism out there. So, but my course and how I teach it, it's very emotion positive, meaning that you forgive the external circumstances, and then you include in that practice how those external circumstances made you feel. And the only way to identify how exactly it made you feel is to really, face them and see and process them. And I'm not a huge fan of people saying, feel your feelings, just feel your feelings. And I think that's definite progress in Western culture, for a culture that has really denied and suppressed emotions for, hundreds and hundreds of years. However, I think that for a lot of people, emotions are incredibly intense. So I almost liken it to telling somebody just go swimming in the deep end, right? You need to know how to swim to jump into the deep end. You can't just go swimming into the deep end. So with that said, I'm not a fan of just feel your feelings, but I'm a huge fan of learn to see and process your emotions. And with that said, there's more of a goal when someone's actually turning towards their emotional realm is to dissolve it, not to just feel it. It's actually like when we see and process our emotional realm, it kind of instantaneously lightens up. And most people, when they start doing the practices that I teach them, I feel like I've heard this probably like 70 to 80% of the people who've taken the course, they're shocked at how much they have inside them. So with that said, once people start seeing and processing and circulating their emotional realm, which again, is just another anatomical system that's supposed to move, once people start circulating it, then they can start to see like, oh, like they can start to see the mark or the wound or the effect that the situation had on them. And once they're able to identify that, then that gets included into the blessing practice. And
so it's like if you're feeling anger around it, you start to bless the anger.
Right. If that's the core emotion. A lot of times anger is not the core emotion, right? Like a lot
well,
of
anger is always covering up sadness or heartache or something.
So
yeah.
I think sometimes anger can be the core emotion for sure. I think some people come in feeling more on the grief side of things and need to tap into their anger. And some people come in on the angry side of things and need to tap into their grief and sadness about what happened. Some people have fear, like I think there's always, not always, but I think investigating past the initial emotion is always worth the investigation because oftentimes people find something deeper there. I'm actually like, I think rage is often a very legitimate experience that people are having that is often covered up. And again, like rage is often so, what's it called? Pathologized and considered taboo and such a no-no. And that's because there is no safe and secure way to channel it. But when somebody has a safe and secure way to channel it and understands that it's actually just a human defense response that, you know, has kept humans alive for, you know, again, hundreds, thousands and thousands of years, it's like, oh, it's like, I can see that I'm not a monstrous person for having this experience, and I can actually channel it forth in a healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more about, I say feel your emotions, but I understand like the wording that you were saying. Um, it's funny, like this whole conversation is making me think, like, have you ever read the book Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by David R. Hawkins?
No, tell me
It's
about it.
really, really good. You should read it. It's phenomenal. It's very famous. He was a psychologist, so it's like a little bit dry, but it's like it will change your life. But I remember reading that book, and he talks all about repressed and suppressed feelings. That's like emotions. That's like what the book is about. And he actually like puts them on like a numerical scale where like, love and authenticity and gratitude are like super high, and like, judgment and whatever is like super low. But the whole book is like talking about how, we have to let go of our emotions, and emotions are layered, kind of like how you were just saying, like, there's always something beneath that first top layer of rage or whatever it is. But I remember leaving that book like in a similar way to how you felt with forgiveness, being like, okay, like I understand there's repressed emotions. Like I get this, I like understand, but like, how do I let go of them? And I ended up finding Osho's dynamic meditation. And I know Osho is a very controversial figure, but, for listeners, I mean, I've had two people. If you want to hear about Osho, go back several episodes. I've had Subhan and Shanti on, who were literally like the third and fourth people like on his ranch. Like he like devout spiritual followers, like had nothing to do with the craziness. You can separate a teacher from some of their followers, but that practice for me has been the most life-changing thing ever, because it allows you to feel your repressed emotions. And it's literally what you were saying. Like I'll start with, like if anger is the top thing on the surface, I'll start it, and within like moments it shifts, and then you feel the thing underneath, and then it shifts and you feel the thing underneath. So it's so powerful, and like the lightness you feel when you start to let go of that shit is just amazing. So I'm loving everything you're saying. It's just like such a parallel story to like what I experienced with that. But you have to let go of that kind of shit. Like it's poison, and like holding on to that poison only hurts you.
Right, it builds and builds, yeah. And I feel sad because I feel sad and happy because again, I definitely feel like the emotional world is finally having its day. And emotional intelligence is a conversation that's extremely popular right now, and that makes me very, very happy. But I also, again, it's definitely the realm of human experience that gets the worst rap. And so I feel like when you think about how emotional human beings are, my goodness, I know that until I figured out my emotional world, I was miserable. So
Do you really, I don't know if I like live in a bubble or something, but I'm like, is it really like frowned upon still to like feel your emotions? Is that still like such a taboo thing?
West Coast of the United States.
Well, and I've been immersed in this world for like over 2 decades.
On the West Coast of the United States.
Well, not the West Coast, but just like spirituality and personal development. I've been like immersed.
You are 1000% in a bubble. You and me. And I say that I have lived in Boulder, Colorado, which is a bubble. I've lived in Seattle, which is a very groovy, city like the Bay Area that has a lot of progressive things happening. And I've also lived in Rome, Italy, right? And especially Rome has really humbled me with what bubbles those other two places.
That's interesting that you say that, because I didn't even mean like geographical location, because I actually don't feel that way about the Bay Area. I think there's a lot of like virtue signaling happening here, and a lot of people trying to like play a role, but I don't like, when I think about like spirituality and personal development, that's like a global network, but it's still a bubble, totally. But yeah, I don't feel that way about the Bay Area.
I have found it super heavy on the West Coast, and And in a good way, you know, like I really think like people are doing evolutionary things on the West Coast of the United States that aren't happening in other places of the world. And I also see everything, you know, in terms of like, what did you call it?
Virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling. Like I understand that also, and that's pretty heavy in Boulder, Colorado as well. But yeah, when I talk to other people from other cultures, which I love to do, it's one of my favorite things. It's fascinating to me, all the different levels of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate perspective. So I just observe it. But I know that like I can definitely say things, admit things, talk about things, invite conversations that kind of really stun other people. And for me, it's just totally natural, you know, to have developed myself within healing communities. And that's kind of what we all sit around talking about.
Yeah.
So once you extract yourself from that and just like, I hang out in Rome with a lot of expats, you know, so just regular people who are just travelers coming together. And expats are very open, generally speaking, but I wouldn't necessarily call them diehard seekers. Like seekers really are a specific group of people.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that. I remember someone called me a seeker like a decade ago or 2 decades ago, and I was like, I am? And now I'm like, oh yeah, I can own that one.
So what do you say to people who are like, you know, such and such, what such and such did to me is unforgivable? Like, how did you phrased it a certain way? I'm trying to remember. It was like pardoning or something, like, oh, how do I just let them get away with this? Like they're gonna take advantage again, or, you know, they're gonna think what they did is okay. Like, what's your response to people that say stuff like that?
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the top things that people Google about forgiveness is why can't I forgive my ex, or why can't I forgive my husband, or, you know, that's why can't I forgive, and then fill in the blank. And so I describe it that there's interpersonal forgiveness and there's intrapersonal forgiveness. And interpersonal forgiveness is the forgiveness that happens between two people. And what I really, you know, want people to understand about that one is that it really is a two-way street in order for forgiveness to be created. So like if you're in a relationship with somebody and a violation or betrayal happens, that other party, the violating party, really needs to come forward and express their regrets, want to rebuild trust, want to make amends. Because otherwise, if you don't rebuild trust, how could you pardon them, right? I don't get it. Like I couldn't pardon somebody who didn't regain my trust. Or maybe, you know, I could forgive them. And so that's like, you know, a big distinction that I make is that you don't have to pardon somebody in order to forgive them. Then there's intrapersonal forgiveness. And intrapersonal forgiveness is something that we do on our own and that we can do about anything. And I say that not everything is pardonable, but everything is forgivable, because unconditional love really has zero ability to withhold itself from whatever is in its path. And I love that you brought up Anita Moorjani, you said. You know, she wrote an incredible book about her experience with divine love. You know, near-death experiences are one of the most profound ways to learn about the reality of unconditional love.
Because it's only forgiveness on the other side.
Right.
There's only love and forgiveness. There's like no judgment at all.
Right, exactly. So, for example, like what if you need to forgive somebody who's passed away, right? Or what if you're never going to get that apology? So many people need to forgive the experience of being in a relationship with someone who's narcissistic. Narcissistic people are never going to apologize, right? Or it's unlikely that they will ever apologize. And so that doesn't leave you out of the forgiveness game, not receiving the amends and the apology from the other person. You really can. Intrapersonal forgiveness is really something you do on your own for yourself. And in order to transform and transcend what happened and create a new beginning for yourself.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the distinction. So your answer to that would kind of be like, you don't have to pardon them in order to forgive them. So I guess then what would the distinction be that you make for those people between
Well,
the two?
that I don't define forgiveness as pardoning, and that there are some things in this world, a lot of things in this world, that I don't believe are pardonable. But everything is forgivable, because unconditional love has zero ability to withhold itself from anything that's in its path. And so, as a forgiveness practitioner, we are skillful at putting things that our logical minds say are horrific and unforgivable and unpardonable and unexcusable. As a forgiveness practitioner, actually takes those situations or persons and knows how to put them into the path of unconditional love. And so this is actually another huge point right now, and a big piece of what I teach is that I teach that forgiveness is a delegation. So a lot of people, when they are feeling very strong emotions, forgiveness seems impossible. So what I'm teaching people is that forgiveness is not your ability to love unconditionally. Forgiveness is your ability to enlist unconditional love. And so that night when I stepped onto the forgiveness path, I, had nothing but resentment towards my ex-business partners. Like, I didn't feel anything, I didn't feel any love for them in my body. I thought they were terrible people who did a terrible thing and betrayed me. However, again, I was born with this experience that I could reach for in that moment. It's like, oh, I can't forgive these, I can't love these people right now, but I have access to this thing that can, for whatever the reason. So let me go grab this thing that can love them, and let's see what happens here. What happens if I take this situation and saturate it in unconditional love? And my hypothesis, came out good, 21 days later.
Yeah, very cool. So is there anything regarding forgiveness that we haven't talked about yet today that you really want to get out there to people?
Well, I just know that as a forgiveness teacher, I often hear, oh, I tried to forgive and I just couldn't make it work, or forgiveness is the hardest thing that a person can do. And oh, I really tried hard to forgive my mother or father, and I couldn't do it. And so what I want to say to these people is that you're not a forgiveness failure, that there is another approach, and that pardoning doesn't work for a lot of people. I might even dare say most people. But pardoning can be a beautiful result of knowing how to wield unconditional love in a skillful way. People, meditators, have you had a profound experience of divine love? I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had amazing experiences forgiving people too.
Yeah. And so do you define it as pardoning?
I don't know that I've ever defined it.
Okay.
I don't know.
So can I ask what it was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a talk I'd give on it all the time. Well, so I've had to do two major rounds of forgiveness in my life. The first, I was sexually assaulted by a family member and then disowned by my entire family because of it. But that's so long ago. I was very young. That's so long ago that was my seeking years of trying all the different healing modalities and learning and reading and being that just forever student. But in 2020, I was a target of cancel culture from a community that I was a part of. And I was working at this yoga studio, and this group of former employees decided to take down the boss because according to them, he had done some pretty horrific things. But it branched out to attacking all the directors, all the managers, and all these lies were spread about me on social media. I was receiving death threats up to 3 years later. I was receiving death threats. And it was really traumatic. It was to the point where I was like afraid to go out of my house for a while.
Wow.
And some things that really helped me, and I write about this in my book, was just changing my perspective around it. So, this idea that like we all have soul contracts, and people who might be like your best friends on the other side are contracted to play the villains in this lifetime, right? It's because they love you so much, they're willing to let you be mad at them so that you have the opportunity to grow. And then, when you're both on the other side, like in the curtain goes down and the actors take off their masks, they're going to give you a big hug and be like, I'm so proud of how you did this, like shifting my perspective around that. And then this idea that like we tend to turn people who have hurt us into monsters in our minds, because it's so much easier for us to hate them if we do. Mm-hmm. And if we can flip our perspective and turn them into teachers, it completely changes our life, because every single person has something that they can teach you. Mm-hmm. And chances are you've learned something from this experience that you've gone through that you're having trouble forgiving, or you would learn something if you could just let go of your anger and your hate and your hurt, right? Mm-hmm. So in my book, I lay out like ways to turn a monster into a teacher. And there's really two ways, right? The first is to to think about things that you admire about them. Like what are some good things they've done for you? What are some good things they've done for the world? Like every person has a different facet of themselves. What do the people who love them see in them? Mm-hmm. Like if you focus on the negative side of someone, you're going to keep getting the negative side of someone. Mm-hmm. And then if you're like, they're like, no one, this person has done nothing good, right? They're worse than like Satan, they're worse than Hitler himself, right? Like mm-hmm. they've never done anything good. Like the second way to turn a monster into a teacher is to recognize ways they've helped you grow, right? Like maybe you've learned how to set stronger boundaries. Maybe you've learned how you don't want to treat other people. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've, stepped into your own power more. So a lot of it for me was like shifting my perspective around it. And then like also, like I said, different kind of cathartic modalities that allow me to like really go into my anger and my hurt and like really feel those things simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what did it for me. And a lot of therapy, like a lot of therapists were like, you have to recognize like what part of this belongs to you and what part belongs to other people, right? And the part that belongs to other people is they chose to, take things you said and did in like a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. Or they chose to, instead of have a face-to-face conversation if something was bothering them, like anonymously post like lies on the internet, right? Or like let things build up, mm-hmm. Or only see things through their perspective, right? Like I went through 3 different therapists and all of them said the same thing. Actually, they were like, this is about boundaries, right? Like you had, like the people who wrote these things didn't establish proper boundaries, mm-hmm. and like you need to set proper boundaries now. And I mean, now I'm grateful it happened because I learned so much from it, but it was a dark storm. Like I said, I was like up to like 3 years later getting death threats, and people turned it into like crazy things. Like people decided it was a cult, and like it was just strange. It was very, very strange.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah. I think that getting scapegoated is one of the most intense things that can happen to a person. And you're a beacon for that. It is also survivable. And I love that in this day and age, it really invites someone like you to just go to such a higher level of integrity, right? Like, I mean, in terms of your boundaries and who you will trust and who you won't trust and what you will say and what you will own and what you won't own, right? I think like when we're younger, it's kind of like a free for all in terms of like, we can trust people, everything's cool, it's all good. And then you suddenly realize, oh wow, a lot of people don't have integrity, and that's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it took a lot of work to get to the point where I'm at now. I mean, it's 5 years later and I feel like I can finally say those things. But yeah, no, thanks for saying that. I think I mean, bullying has always been there, but like in the age of like the keyboard warriors and, again, the virtue signaling and the jumping on the bandwagon, that was what was weird too. It was like people who had weeks earlier told me how much they loved me and how grateful they were for me were suddenly like, it was like watching a psychology experiment to see who would like jump on this bandwagon. But I think I learned a lot about
really
humans.
Into karmic curriculums. I agree with you in terms of soul contracts that we all have a karmic curriculum in this lifetime, and it often repeats in different forms. But when we delve deep and really look at it directly, the same theme is kind of looping over and over again until we finally catch onto it. I'm a huge fan of astrology as well, and the astrology chart is a very strong way to be able to identify a karmic curriculum. It's one of my things that I love about it the most, is how it helps us see them. But you were saying that you've had a lot of experiences with divine love, and I was just wondering if you could speak to one of those.
I think, yeah, I mean, like through different meditations and healing modalities, but the one the one that pops out the most, I had a shared death experience, and I was able to feel, I was with my dog actually. I was able to feel the most love and lightness and joy and peace that I have ever felt in my life.
Wow.
And it was like going from like heartbroken and like bawling to like laughing, because it was just the most beautiful, it was just, I don't know how to describe it. It was just light and just love and peace and joy and just whole body tingling. And like, that was definitely
So
like,
your dog transitions and you somehow got, captured by the death experience and went in with the dog.
yeah.
Wow.
I went in like a tunnel, everything. Yeah. I have a TV show coming out soon, and the pilot episode is about NDEs and SDEs, and I like go into the whole story. But yeah, it was so profound to like tap into that. It was like nothing I've ever experienced.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sad about your dog, of course, but I love that example. And what I love about it also is that, like, think about what that experience would have been like had you not had that. What's an SDE? You mentioned an SDE. I've never heard of that before.
Shared death experience.
Shared death experience.
Yeah, so like a lot of like hospice workers or family at bedsides will have elements of the death experience, right? They'll see dead relatives, they'll experience the tunnel, some will have a life review, some will experience floating out of their body. Like there's a whole gamut. There's several books written on it. And that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard of that before. So thank you for sharing that.
So Dr. Raymond Moody and Paul Perry are in the pilot episode. Dr. Raymond Moody is the man who coined the term near-death experience, but together they've written, I think, over 16 books on near-death experiences and shared death experiences. I'm trying to remember what their SDE book is called. I don't know, but if you look it up, if you're listening, if you Google it, you'll find it, but it's really good. And there's another one called At Heaven's Door about shared death experiences.
I love it. And I love, like, just, again, like, I'm very spiritual and I'm also very practical. And so I tell people, I'm like, unconditional love is a medicinal force. Like, aside from having this extraordinary experience, not everybody has experiences like you have. Like, a lot of people go through life like feeling like they've never touched on it. It's really devoted meditation practitioners and people who've had near-death experiences or people who are just very, very spiritual who really can tap into it and describe it and how it's beyond description, right? I once, considering I always had this felt experience, once while I was meditating, it completely took me over 100%. And it was startling. I jolted and immediately tried to like examine it and understand it, which of course took me out of the experience. meaning it's so huge that it's not that easy to digest and receive. Should it visit you or should it come on strong at whatever point? However, we can tap into it in smaller doses, and it really is this medicinal thing that we can call upon and use as medicine. And so, not that you were trying to do that, but like, I imagine had you had that experience with your dog and had not had that experience of unconditional love, that grief period with your dog would have been a completely different story than what ended up happening, because unconditional love, you went to it or it came to you or you were able to merge with it in that moment. So on a very practical level, I just think it's useful.
Totally. And I think like to your point, like once you accidentally get shown that, you like try to get back to that, right? It like makes you so much more open where you're like, I want to feel that again. Like that was amazing. And it, you know, just because it happens once doesn't mean you're like this enlightened being, right? It's like you're still here doing work, and it's like I've had to like, you know, do healing modalities and sit meditations and do different things to like get back to that. And I don't think I have it flowing through me to the point where I can tap into it as much as you can. But I don't know, like reading all those NDE stories and watching the videos, it's like everyone describes that that's what the other side is. It's just unconditional love. It's like what we are at our essence.
Yeah. So next time, I mean, you're having babies, so I don't know if this is going to happen to you anytime soon, but to all your listeners, next time you're at a dinner party and hanging out with a group of friends, open this question up. Like, ask people if they've ever had a profound experience of unconditional love, because it truly is one of the most interesting conversations. And you'll be surprised, like how some people, because I bring this question up a lot during podcasts, and it's been so interesting to hear people's reports of it. And most people who interview me have had an experience, and I do get even interviewers who are experts in NDEs. But yeah, it's a really cool question to share with others and to kind of like bring more out into an open conversation, because people just kind of see it as like this random fluke experience that they had once. It's actually this like incredible medicinal force that we can use in very practical ways, even if we're not like feeling the full-blown experience. The full-blown experience is almost incapacitating, right? Like you really just are merged with this, you know, incredible love. But there's, again, like there's these ways that we can use it. As you know, what I teach people is how to apply it in a very practical way. And I think, you know, considering how hungry people are to feel better in this difficult world, it's definitely this easy access source once you develop your experience with it. So that's what I would like to tell your listeners.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love, one of my favorite things that you've said on this whole show is like you have people feel it within themselves first before they direct it. Because you can't like, your logical brain can be like, okay, unconditional love exists, like I can do, but you have to like be in your body feeling it, right? Like you have to go within. So I just think that's such an important part of it. And I love that you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, an hour flew by. Thank you so much. It's been, I love this topic. It's been so cool to hear your take on it. If you want to just take a moment and let people know how they can connect with you, I'm sure they want to work with you.
So 2 years after my experience, I went to GoDaddy and typed in how to forgive, and there it was sitting waiting for me. So my website is howtoforgive.com, and you can buy the course at any time, and it's a 5-week course, and it's really step-by-step building blocks. The whole goal is for you to learn how to forgive and learn how to forgive by forgiving something. And at the end, like really feel like these skills are yours and you have them for life. And there's also 5 energy sessions in there, very much about people learning how to circulate their energy and to see their energy and to, you know, kind of live from a more body-based experience. And so those are all meant to enhance the forgiveness process. And yeah, and I'm at Dara at How to Forgive. And if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out to me, I always love talking forgiveness.
I'm going to throw this out there. I think you need to write a book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
So,
I
do you
think,
want to know why I'm a little hesitant with that? Is because I really want people to have an experience and like a transformational experience, and I almost think that writing a book is going to put everything into words, and people are going to read it and go, "Oh, that's cool." Whereas like the course kind of like really demands that like, no, let's show up 100% and dive into the transformation of all of this. But I really appreciate you saying that, and I take it as a very high compliment.
yeah, yeah. Well, think about it. All right. If you are listening and there is something you heard in here that you think will resonate with someone, please send it to them. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. Let's help lift humanity up. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.